Okay, so we've done the actual tests, the screening. Now, how do we actually get better? When we've got red flag areas or we're doing some holistic mobility stuff, what are we actually going to do? So we'll start at the top of the list from the screening, and we're going to show you 3 movements, or around about 3 for each one to improve. So the first one is going to be the posterior chain. So it was the sit and reach test.
So exercises we can use. So Johnny's going to come into tabletop position, stacking the shoulders over the wrists and the hips over the knees, okay? And he's going to tuck his toes under at the back. And then he's going to come into downward dog. So he's going to send his hips high, making a capital A shape with his body. And from there, he's going to be looking back at his thighs. He's going to be essentially sticking his bum out in that position so he can feel a stretch down his hamstrings. Nice for the lower back as well. And he can press one heel down and alternate and press the other heel down just to take the pressure out of one hamstring and out of the other one. Just a little bit of movement sometimes helps if you're feeling super tight. Your knees do not have to be locked, okay? Your legs don't have to be straight and your heels don't have to be on the ground. It's just about how it feels, not how it looks, okay? So dog, that's the first one. Okay, second one, we're just stepping our feet under our hips, again, keeping the knees soft and just hinging from the hip and hanging. Just a nice forward fold, letting the head hang. Again, feeling that stretch in the hamstrings and that really nice release through the lower back. So just heavy, heavy, heavy. And just hanging out there, taking some nice deep breaths.
And third one, with a band or a belt or some strap.
As you like.
So from here, nice pelvis on the ground, shoulder blades back, not necessarily a locked leg.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be straight. Yeah, keep a little nice bend in the knee, that's completely fine. A nice big inhale on the exhale. So we tend to move into all these movements on the exhale, okay, working with that stretch reflex. So trying to get around the brain's protection mechanism, just lengthening that leg and drawing the foot towards yourself, towards your head essentially, okay? So again, it's about how it feels, trying to find the stretch in the bulk of the hamstring muscle here.
Feels awful.
Right. Yeah, might make you want to gag. Keep a bend through the other leg, unless you're super bendy, but in which case you might not be needing to do so much of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's the 3 for that. Then we're doing, so the spinal extension.
The spine's basically the mast of the body, really important. Obviously, mast of the trunk as well. So all that core stability, that balance, that power, all coming from the torso and then the pelvis more specifically. So onto the back, knees are bent. So we're just going to go into a little pelvic tilt. So Johnny's going to inhale and arch through his low back, and he's going to exhale and flatten his low back. So all he's doing is he's just rocking the pelvis away from himself and then back. Okay, so really great for any sort of low back pain, really great after deadlift, something like that. And then as he exhales and tucks now, next time he inhales, he's going to rise up into essentially a glute bridge, into a back bend bridge, okay? And then ripple back down through his spine, okay? So if it just shows you that one more time, inhaling, arching, exhaling, tucking, and then again, as he rises up into this bridge, we're trying to get a bit of extension, yeah? We're trying to get this curve from shoulder to knee, getting those hips lifted, getting that extension through the spine. That's great. Perfect.
Cool. And then final one, if you have a foam roller. If you don't, I suggest you get one.
Knobbly foam roller obviously is always going to be stronger than a smooth one. So if you find that too much, get one of the smooth ones and it won't be quite as painful.
Yeah. So about where you imagine your bra strap is to start, link your hands over your chest, bring your hips up, head on the mat. So you're gauging this by your hips. So your head's always on the mat, point of contact. Make sure that the roller's not on your lower back, but your thoracic spine, so upper back, really important there. And then again, inhale. As you exhale, bring your hips under until hopefully they touch the ground. If they don't touch the ground, then inhale and exhale and just manipulate in that position. If they do hit the ground, then you can put a little bit of sideways action on it, or locking straight and a bit of up and down rolling through the thoracic spine, but try and avoid your lower back. Okay, 3 done, 4. Goodbye, roller. So dorsiflexion, my favorite is with a band. You can do this on the floor or on a box, hooking the band onto the front. You're then going to kick out, so there's loads of tension there. There's good angle, lots of tension. And then all of your weight forwards, so putting your chest onto your thigh, and then from there, slight manipulation side to side. 2 minutes each side. Okay, so that's 1.
Next one, super simple. Just getting your feet in line with your hips, in line with your knees, so everything's parallel. Just simply tucking the toes under and sitting your weight back on your heels. Yeah, which
that's sick.
Again, for some people, it's really, really horrible feeling. So if you find it pretty difficult, you don't have to stay there. You can stay there and breathe. You don't have to. You can just bring the weight forward, take a little breath and sit back again and just take a few little repetitions like this. Yeah.
Okay, a few reps at that. Yep.
Awesome. Finally, we're just going to use a wall or the rig, okay? And we're going to place the ball of our toe against it. And then how close you move to the wall, the closer you are, that's going to increase the intensity of that angle at the ankle.
Cool. Okay, so that's 3, 4 dorsiflexion on the ankles.
I need the resistance band actually.
Yep, I knew I threw it away and you need it. All right.
So 3 different movements, stretches for plantar flexion. So actually you're good as you were for a moment. So again, a little bit like it's basically like the plantar flexion test, yeah? So basically just spending a little bit of time in that position, okay? So untucking the toes, fronts of the ankles and tops of the feet flat, but you might find that you need to rise out of the position, take some weight out, and then just sit back, see maybe if you can take a big inhale, a big exhale, okay? So just getting your ankles into that position, into that range of movement.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, so you can go onto your bum for the next one. So super, super simple. Lengthening the legs out. All you're going to do is basically point the toes. Yeah, so just pointing the toes, holding, brilliant, and then just releasing and just taking a few repetitions like that. Again, just making that shape, making that position. Okay, and then pretty much exactly the same, but adding a resistance band. So same movement, you got a bit of resistance there. So it's just really getting you to, it's a bit of a strengthener really, as well as a range of movement exercise, which isn't a bad thing. Yeah. So just getting you to push against that resistance to point the toe.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay, that's 3 done. Okay, so groin opener. Ideally, you'll have a wall for this, but I don't want to take down all this equipment and set up by a wall. So we're going to go between a rig. Maybe it looks a bit more like Van Damme, badass. I quite like it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice kind of comfy, I'm going to call it a bit more of a passive one. You sort of just lay down, bum against the wall. Interesting, obviously, before you let the legs fall open, can you make that 90-degree shape? Do your hamstrings let you do that? Okay, you can always come away from the wall a little bit and then just letting the legs fall open, as you can see. So Johnny's got a nice stretch in the groins and inner thighs, yeah?
Cool.
Brilliant.
And you sit here for 2 minutes, maybe?
Yeah.
A couple of sets of 2 minutes?
You can always bring the legs back together, take a little break, let them fall open again, maybe an accumulation of 2 minutes.
Cool.
Brilliant. Okay, so onto your bum. This is a yoga move, but don't be scared. Basically the same position as you tested in. So bringing the soles of the feet together and the heels in towards the groins. And then you've got a couple of options. You can just sit and you can breathe there. Great one to do sort of like sitting in front of the sofa, watching the TV, okay? Or you can do some little butterflies of the knees. So you can just do a little really gentle bounce, a little bit more dynamic. Maybe a nice one to do again before squatting, something like that as well. So bound angle pose, yeah?
Cool.
Soles of the feet together.
Yeah.
Okay, and then final one we're going to do for this. We are going to stand and we're going to kind of heel toe our feet wide, Keeping our feet parallel, or if anything, our toes slightly turned in, okay? Bring the hands to the hips, take a nice big inhale, and as you exhale, hinge forward. And you can release your hands at the bottom and let your head hang. You might find you can nudge those feet a bit further out. Probably better in bare feet, you get a bit more grip.
Yeah, my socks are slipping.
So you find that nice stretch in those inner thighs and the groins. Sorted.
Forearms on. Fail. Okay. So groin done. Hip flexion.
Hip flexions.
So hip flexion, we're going through the pigeon pose, another yoga.
Yeah,
we'll call it yoga origin.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Used a lot in CrossFit actually, and in a lot of different sports for getting to the glutes. Also, obviously, the hips still in flexion there, and we're getting some sort of stretching any tension in that glute of the bent leg. Okay.
Yep.
So if you remember, the test for this was drawing the knee into the chest, the front of the thigh into the chest. So seeing if we have any tension in that glute there. So as Johnny's demonstrating, pigeon, how close your foot is, or how parallel your lower leg is to the front of your mat, for example, just depends on your hip, your glute, and your knee. You've got to keep your knee joint happy as well in this position. So any knee issues, this one might not be for you, but we've got another two. So
cool. Okay.
Okay, and then I've gone for child's pose. So essentially walking your hands forward, keep leaving your bum back on your heels. Yeah. So allowing your head to just drop, might not rest on the ground. It doesn't matter if it doesn't. Okay. But again, you're getting a little bit of release there through the glutes. You've got that flexion at the hip, and you've got a little bit of that sort of natural weight of your body helping you sort of down into that position. Okay. And then last one. So I really like this one. This is kind of getting a little bit more to the piriformis muscle. Okay?
Yeah, which is super tight sometimes. You find that if your glutes don't fire so much, your piriformis can get tight. It's a secondary muscle, but often it takes a lot of the brunt on squats and deadlifts, stabilizing. And that is a massive contributor to lower back pain. So if you can stretch it, if you can roll it, if you get physio and get acupuncture in it, all of these things can help if you find that you get a lot of lower back pain. Absolutely. Often it's piriformis.
Okay, so we're taking a band, or a band's handy in this case, just that bit of stretch, but you could use a strap as well. And we're drawing, it's sort of like we're drawing the foot in, so it's in line with the center of the chest and letting the knee out to the side, okay? You could stay there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring the band behind my head. Foot in your mouth is not obligatory. So just keep finding that tension point to get that stretch. Like it's in a slightly different place to the glutes, the main bulk of the glutes, slightly further around to the side. So nice deep breaths. Again, you can release and come back into the position if you need to.
Super good stretch. Okay, quads.
There's kind of only a finite number of ways to stretch your quads. I find that it tends to be the same, pretty much the same sort of movement, but in different positions. So the best way that I found to do this with people, because sometimes cramp can be a bit of an issue, is to lie on your side. So Johnny, if you just lie on your side and rest on your left elbow, kind of on your hand with your elbow down. Yeah, great. And now, if you start to bend through the right knee, luckily for Johnny, he hasn't got any cramp issues, but you might want to just bring the foot in and out a couple of times just to let your brain know what's going to happen, okay? Catching that foot, again, you could use maybe a little band or a little strap if that's tricky for you. Now bringing the knees together, trying to push the hips forward and bringing your heel in towards your bum, trying to find a stretch down the front here, down the front of the thigh, probably into the front of your hip as well, okay? It's likely, okay? So just keep sort of sending the hips forward, bringing the knees together, taking some nice deep breaths, side lying quad stretch.
Cool. We'll use this, but a wall is probably preferred.
Yeah. Or the couch.
Or the couch, on the couch, while you're watching Netflix, whatever. So what we find is that getting into the position, don't throw yourself into the most difficult position that you can find. So rambling. Just be careful, keeping your hands planted as you bring that front foot forwards. And then from there, this may well be enough. Just pushing your butt back towards your heel, that might be enough on its own. If you want a little bit more, then you can put a hand or two hands on your knee. But the further up you go, it might not necessarily add more stretch. It might just be overextending your lower back. So be very careful that as you come up, it's contributing to opening the angle of your hip and not extending your spine. So you could end up in this position and think, wow, look how flexible I am. But in reality, all of that is coming from the lower back, which is a bad thing. In reality, if I lock myself down here and push back, this is probably the angle that's optimum for me, which isn't a full 180 of the hip because my hip flexors and quads are tight. So tighten the obliques, pushing back, butt to heel, and then trying subtly to open the hip. And right there is perfect for me. So as you can see, I'm not all the way extended, but enough to stay safe, but very effective at stretching that hip flexor and quad.
And we need the foam roller.
Foam roller. It's gone.
Because I was just going to do a foam roller.
Foam roller. All right, so we need a foam roller for this one. Got it. Cheers,
Okay, so I'm not going to lie, I don't really want to demonstrate this because it's going to hurt.
Okay.
Oh, you're going to do
Get
it?
on it.
Nice.
I love
Go on,
it.
then
I love
you
it.
take the pain, Johnny. So basically, bringing yourself, leaving whichever leg you're rolling, leaving the other leg on the ground. So you've got that contact point of the hands. You can start on the full sort of front of the quad, front of the thigh, and then rolling to just above the knee. And you can come all the way into the front of the hip if you want. Nice big rolls. Okay. Is that feeling nice, Johnny?
Yeah.
And then you can stop where you find real sort of knots or real tension points. You can stop and you can do smaller rolls after you've done some longer rolls. Stop on those points and do some smaller rolls there. So also options to move to the outside.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
further
favorite.
out. Yeah, doesn't make you want to gag at all. And then you can also move to that sort of inside as well. So a real nice favorite with cyclists, this one, of all kinds.
Okay, quads. So there's lots of quad work in the stuff that we do. It's likely going to make them tight, and especially if you work at a desk job or you do a lot of traveling, shortening the hip flexors is going to be impactful on your position. So loosening your quads, strengthening glutes and hamstrings, which we do through the program anyway, that's all going to keep you nice and safe through your midline and your lower back. So important that you do the quad work regardless of where you score on the screening tests. Quad work pretty much anytime you do mobility. And shoulders, lats.
So we need a resistance band.
Resistance band.
We need a resistance band, Johnny.
Goodbye, roller. Hello, band.
Woo!
All right. Not so good that time.
Holding on with one hand, just sitting your weight back, and then that extended arm, I'm just looking
Just swap arms there.
slightly under.
Yeah.
Just looking slightly under, just trying to find this stretch sort of in the left lats here, okay?
So lats running from the armpit all the way down to your lower back. This is going to be the biggest muscle on your back. This is going to get tight from a lot of pull-ups, but because we work this a lot, because bike control is really important through the lats, it's important still that you spend a lot of time on this,
So,
doing this kind of stretch.
yeah, and really great for, again, we don't just want to focus on the shoulder. If we can just sort of release off lats a little bit, that's going to help with shoulders as well.
So you imagine shoulder tension doesn't necessarily mean that your shoulder muscles, so your delts, are tight. More often than not, it comes from your pec, so pec minor, and your lats. So tension there can be very restrictive. What we want to imagine is that these are the primary stabilizers of your shoulder, and that when you get tight traps, that's a red flag that these aren't firing properly, or that these are too tight. So pecs and lats.
Surrounding area.
Surrounding area, yeah. So that was a lat stretch.
Yeah,
It would hit into the pec a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And the next one that I'm going to show you definitely gets, it's kind of front of shoulder pec. So you can go in the rig. I'm just going to show you on one side, a couple of options actually. So just holding on around shoulder height and just bringing your weight forward slightly.
Yeah,
okay.
So really good for pec minor that we just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit into bicep, and then, sort of that front of the shoulder area. Just want to be mindful though, if you do have any injuries, any sort of dislocations or anything, you don't want to be forcing that sort of head of the bone of the upper arm kind of forward out of the shoulder. We don't want a kind of horrible distorted.
So it's not that the more pain you feel, the more
Not
stretch
at all.
there is. You need to have a limit on that so
Absolutely.
that you can feel a stretch, but it's not compromising safety. And it's not like Van Damme in Kickboxer, where you're basically trying to split yourself, and then once it's done, it's done. It's a continual process of finding a position where it's slightly uncomfortable, you can feel a stretch, but you're not over-forcing it.
Absolutely. Okay. Slight variation of this again. You could bring the forearm rather than the hand.
That would hit more of the pec
Yeah.
and less of the shoulder. So maybe if you have a shoulder issue and you want to stretch the pec more, go for a bent arm position.
Okay. Finally, just going to go for a nice kneeling lat stretch. I really like this one as well. So sort of down into that kind of child's pose position that we were in before. And then quite simply going to bring one hand in. If we were doing the right side, right arm forward, over to the left, onto the little finger edge, and sort of sinking down and sending that right side slightly out to the right, just looking under the arm and finding that stretch again in the lats. Nice little release for lower back at the same time.
Great. Okay, so that is a handful of movements that you can do for the areas that you might have found that you've got difficulty with. So you can add these into your mobility days before and after workouts, and just generally keeping health through all range of motion joints is going to help you perform better in the gym and in turn better on the bike, and probably being a little bit more flexible is going to be better for your riding anyway. This isn't an exclusive list of things that you should be doing. If you have particular favorites that aren't included there, then by all means add them in. Try and identify what area that's going to help and check it off with your list, and always prioritize the red flag areas first so that you know that you're bringing those up. So you're working on your weak areas so that they're not going to let you down, as you know, you're going to be only as strong as your weakest link on some of these compound movements that we do with weight and some of the compromising positions you get yourself in as a rider. And that's it. So any questions, please email them through. I won't give you email address to Amy, but I might ask Amy to reply to some of those if they're a little bit more technical, because let's call her the subject matter expert on this one.
Cool.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy.
Happy stretching.
See you again.